on January 9th, fire every one of these overpaid DEI hires ASAP. One was the LA Department of Water and Power CEO, Christina Crowley, the first LGBTQ fire chief, Christina Kepner, the first lesbian assistant chief, LAFD, Christine Larson, LAFD's first Black Lesbian Equity Bureau chief. Now, when you lay it out like that, it looks like DEI gone nuts. I have to say in her defense that Christina Crowley, I think, has actually performed quite well. I've been more impressed by her than I certainly have by Newsom or by Karen Bass. I mean, now you've had a few days to watch her. Would you agree with that, or do you still?
Would you agree with that? That's a lot of carpets and a lot of licking for people in charge in LA who can't handle a catastrophe. Piers Morgan on with Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David has his hand to his forehead because he's actually about to go off. We had a clip a while back on the channel just a few days ago of Patrick Bet-David, and he had a bad moment when it came to the H-1B visa debate, and this is a good moment for him. I like PBD. At the end, my takeaway is actually going to be about PBD. He's going to go off on this. Patrick Bet-David from the Patrick Bet-David podcast on Piers Morgan with Piers Morgan Uncensored. Let's get it.
People think that these were all hires because of a mindset.
Well, when you get hired and then you say, I can't tell you what percentage it is for me to increase the DEI levels of hires of firefighters to be women because I think it's too low right now, you don't make any sense to me. That you lose credibility when you speak that language. The language of somebody you hire as an executive, and I've hired many, where you're paying them a multi six-figure salary to solve a problem. I'm not expecting that person to come and tell me and say, I'm going to hire more white male than ever before. I'm going to hire more people from Jersey than ever before. I'm going to hire more female than ever before. An investor, CEO is going to sit there and say, I'm sorry, I don't care where they're from. Just get somebody that can do the job the right way. Leadership isn't about what skin color you hire. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, 29, 68, 53, 8-year degree, 4-year degree. Do you get the job done on a timely manner, extremely urgent? And are you somebody that's anticipating a future crisis from taking place and you're getting ahead of it with 5, 10, 15 ways of looking at saying, if this happens, we're going to do this. If this happens, we're going to do this. We have this ready for this. We're using these resources for this. We're producing these cameras because out of the last 200 fires that were started, 68% of them were started here. So we're spending $800 million of putting camera in these areas to see the movements of the fire getting started, to be able to prompt and give us an alert. Give me some of those things as a problem solver. If you're doing that, I honestly don't care if you're straight, gay, lesbian. I have no interest in any of that stuff. But if we're hiring you and you're talking about you want to increase diversity, that's not your job. Your job is to protect the families in the state of California, in LA, minimize these fires. And quite frankly, they failed royally, Piers.
Woo! That's what After Show Carnage is about. Going on the show and doing that is not easy. Patrick Bet-David just went off on a rant. Kind of reminds me of a classic Tim Pool rant. People call him very affectionately Tim Poolstein. Why do you guys call him Tim Poolstein or Tim Poolstein? No, this is a classic Patrick Bet-David rant. I'm going to tell you at the end why he was in his bag. He's not done yet with the rant. Let's keep it going. I'm with Piers Morgan.
But if we're hiring you and you're talking about you want to increase diversity, that's not your job. Your job is to protect the families in the state of California, in LA, minimize these fires. And quite frankly, they failed royally, Piers.
What's going to happen, Patty? I mean, you're the best person to ask about this. The insurance element of this. We know that insurance companies began removing cover for a lot of people before these fires because they said that their companies would simply not be viable if they didn't. We obviously know that after all this, two things are going to happen. One is that premiums are going to go through the roof for everyone who's got an existing fire policy. But secondly, I would imagine that the insurance companies in relation to fire cover in LA, they're all going to run a mile, aren't they? I mean, if they were already doing that before this, Who's going to want to insure anyone against fire in Los Angeles? And even if they do, who can afford it?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. When we started, you said something at the beginning. You said California's preventing insurance companies from banning, from canceling their insurance protection in the state of California. Fortune's article says California bans insurance cancellation in LA fire-affected areas. You don't get to determine that. That's not how business works. There's the right to represent customers that you want. You ever gone to a restaurant and it says, we have the right to refuse. We have the right to refuse. You have the right to refuse. Yeah, you could be offended by it, but you have the right to refuse. Let me give you an interesting story. I bought a boat here in Florida 4 years ago. My insurance company, Chubb, said you need to have a captain on it because you're not a captain. You've never had a boat before this size. I said, no problem. One day my captain's not available. I decide to take the boat out myself. Would you like me to take a boat out where you're insuring, and if I crash it, would you like to protect that boat knowing a person who is not a qualified captain is willing to go out there? Would you like to put that risk on the captain itself, myself, without any insurance? Piers, what would you and I do with somebody like that?
Right. Obviously,
You wouldn't insure him.
Yeah.
So guess what happened 2 days later? I got a letter from Chubb with my picture on it saying, we noticed you posted this and there was no captain there.
Wow.
Because of that, we're dropping your insurance policy.
Wow.
And it was an Instagram video that they showed proof, and they were right. I lost my policy with Chubb. You know what happened when they did that? I wasn't offended by it. They're right. I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I've been in the insurance industry now for almost 25 years. And
That's Patrick Bet-David, and that's him at his best. He is a kind of hustler. I don't care really how he started and got his money as long as it's legal. And he's not in jail, never served time for it. So when he talks business, he makes sense. I actually know him better from when he used to go to the chalkboard and draw out the motivational speeches and the business diagrams of how to make money and all that. That is Patrick Bet-David. He's a little off here. Before I just ended, he was talking about California forcing insurance companies to stay or control prices. He's not a libertarian, so he doesn't understand that competition. You don't have to be a libertarian to understand this, but many who are not don't. You have to encourage competition somehow, and that's how you control prices. The government can't magically control them. He mentioned that, but he didn't go all the way. But I'll tell you why he's in his bag here. He's not talking politics. And I've figured this out pretty late. Patrick Bet-David does not know politics. He's not a political philosopher. He's not a political ideologue. When he looks at politics, he looks at it through the lens of a business. That's why he was off on the H-1B visa debate. From a business standpoint, of course you want, if you put business, you don't care about America. He thinks he does, but he's a business guy first. Then you say, it doesn't matter. I'm a globalist. Bring in anyone from the world so my company can do this and this. It doesn't matter if it's hurting America or if they don't believe in the Bill of Rights. I would say if Patrick Bet-David stays in his lane, he's unstoppable, man. But once he goes out into the politics, he can bring on Comic Dave Smith and all the political figures. But once he starts talking politics, it doesn't go well.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.